I want to see through a different perspective and hear from people whose ancestral roots are deeply tied to the earth and to this area. So I met with 3 members of the Seminole Tribe of Florida to learn about their relationship with the land and their reservations across Central and South Florida.
South speeds.
There's no other place like this here in the world. There's no other Everglades in the world. Maintaining and taking care of a landscape that took care of us historically, that's important to us.
For the Seminole tribe, land is integral to their way of life. In the 19th century, they endured the Seminole Wars, which were a series of battles between the U.S. and indigenous peoples in the South. To members of the tribes, this was seen as one constant war, driven by the U.S. trying to push the Seminoles off their land, causing pain and displacement of indigenous peoples. They fought fiercely to defend their land and people, which makes their homeland even more sacred to them.
We've always remained here as indigenous people to this land, so we have a great holistic understanding of how the environment works.
The land and me are one, we're not separate, and I think most indigenous people think that way too.
You see how everything is interconnected when you're in nature more. Maybe people don't understand how much people impact the environment, even though we can go out to a forest and level it down pretty quickly. They don't see how long it takes for a tree to grow or a plant to grow. Once you go out and you see how much has disappeared and not come back, I think you really start to appreciate it more and to fear what else could be lost.
Within my lifetime, I've been able to notice a difference out here on the reservation. Visibility of water's changed a lot due to the increase of invasive plants. It contributes to the turbidity and it creates a more difficult environment to fish to thrive.
How long have you been boating?
My grandpa had a boat and took us out on the lake pretty often and on the canals. So grew up on the boat, grew up fishing with them, my grandparents. My mom didn't like to fish, but she loved to eat fish, so that was my job, going to get fish for everyone. I remember growing up being able to fish in the canals and pull out, native fish and eat them, but now most of it's invasive species. My grandpa, when I grew up fishing with him on those canals, he would talk about, we used to be able to walk up to the bank and fish and, harvest anything that's at the water's edge, but now that's a lot different. I can't even imagine a life like that because how the structure of the waterways has been permanent in my lifetime, so I can't even imagine what it would look like back then. You feel for the environment because some of those things are lost and they'll never be regained.
We're going to finish up this bit.
There you go. Pat it down. Hello?
Yeah.
10 to 15
One.
minutes. There you go.
Most indigenous tribes, when we plan for the future, we think of the next 7 generations. So it's not about what we're doing now for ourselves. It's to make sure that we always prosper and we keep going.
With increasing risks of rising sea levels, severe storms, and extreme heat in Florida, I learned that there's growing uncertainty about the future of the reservations and whether they will remain habitable.
The tribe definitely feels that impact. A lot of tribes across the country have had to have that difficult conversation of relocating from their reservations. That's why we are full steam ahead on these issues, is to make sure to protect the communities and make sure all our needs are met.
The environment, the world, everything's so much different now than it was for me as a child. And I want them to, I want my kids and their kids, to have a future. I don't want to lose, the reservations. I feel like in the future we're gonna have to move north and I don't want to leave my land. I can only do so much as a Seminole on my own lands, but I can't control what people are doing around me, so I hope the word can get out there and everybody can, get involved and want to take a step to help.
JJ, Cody, and Crystal all work in environmental roles within the Seminole Tribe of Florida, with sustainability at the heart of their efforts.
We do a lot of community events and outreach to educate community members and learn from community members as well. Also to affect the policy of the tribe to try to be more forward-thinking in how climate change will affect our reservations.
The climate team is exploring holistic solutions, and one of their goals is focused on food sovereignty.
Just that little bit's good, but...
Food sovereignty is the idea that you have full control over your food, so what gets grown and what your community eats. Out here in Big Cypress, it's what most people would call a food desert. Anybody that lives out here has to drive at least 45 minutes to their local grocery store, and the only thing in here is a local convenience store.
This is Tuscarora white corn. This is one of our main staples.
Our entire community came to plant the garden, and it felt amazing.
All the tribes that we've networked with, they all came together and they came down and they shared their food, they shared their knowledge, and we were able to reciprocate that and give them back the same thing.
When you grow your own food, you really understand how long it takes for that food to be. That is the connection back to earth. You see how intertwined everything is. Hopefully this garden and other initiatives in the future can provide more stability for the community members that live out here.
I want to be able to take my future grandkids or whoever that may be to these places where my grandfather taught me how to fish. But I get a lot of fulfillment in what I do in my job because I know I'm working towards providing that reassurance to people in the community that there are people that care about these spaces and we're trying to preserve them.